Friendship is unnecessary, like philosophy, like art. It has no survival value. Rather, it is one of those things which give value to survival. Clive Staples Lewis, in The Four Loves. I remember the time when I first played Little Nightmares 1. I heard that it's an amazing horror game with many positive reviews, so I bought it and played from start to finish in a single sitting. Safe to say, I wasn't disappointed. The eerie atmosphere, the oppressive nature of the location in which the protagonist was trapped, the unique concept of being a small child in a world full of giants, all of that made a wonderful, albeit short, experience. So, when the second game got announced, I was excited, thrilled to experience more of that fantastic atmosphere, and once again, I wasn't disappointed at all when I finally got to play it. When the third game got announced and it was said to be made by an entirely different studio, I knew something was off. And, well, it indeed was, because the game was a bit of a disappointment. However, the original team soon after announced that they are working on Reanimal, a game that looked a lot like Little Nightmares. So, once again, I got totally hyped for the experience, and today I finally got to play it after months of waiting. The question is, did it live up to its massive expectations, or did Tarsier Studios unfortunately fail to deliver a great experience for the third time? Stick to the end, because we're going to answer that very question. Should you actually buy Reanimal, or are you better off just watching it on YouTube? Also, I'm basing my review on the single player mode of the PC version. Now, without further ado, let us begin. Light spoilers ahead. Let's talk about the positives first. Both graphics and audio designs are fantastic. The backgrounds look stunning and all of the monsters are bizarre and off-putting, just like they should be. Sound effects and fantastic music are always there to let you know what's going on and keep you on your toes during many chases presented in the game. Right, chases. The game is absolutely packed with them, and oh boy, they are wild. I felt adrenaline pumping through my veins in all of them, and I can say for sure that they are definitely a huge step up from the previous games. Let's just say that for the first time you are able to drive vehicles. There's also a lot of the classic sneaking past enemies unnoticed. A few of these sequences have a very fun gimmicks in them that make things a bit more challenging, but also more enjoyable. Those two things, chases and sneaking, are pretty much what made Little Nightmares, well, Little Nightmares. Unfortunately, the third thing isn't present in Reanimal. What am I talking about? Of course, interacting with the environment. As a small reminder, in Little Nightmares 1 and 2, maybe even 3, but honestly I never got familiar with that game and have no intention of ever doing that. In those games, you are able to interact with pretty much everything in the world by simply pressing the left pause button. During interaction you could, for example, open a drawer by additionally pressing the right movement key. This was an amazing feature that built up a lot of immersion in those games. And it's not present in Reanimal. Instead, here you press E to interact. Only with the objects you are allowed to interact with. I have no idea why this change was made, but it kind of makes this game fall flat compared to previous ones. But worry not, because for a feature from Little Nightmares 2 that's worse, there's a feature from that game which is better in Reanimal. And I'm talking about the combat. I'm sure you all remember the heavy weapons that made one single mistake during combat a death sequence. Well, here our heroes are much better fighters and can hit enemies with little to no cooldown. This makes combat significantly more enjoyable and less like a pretty annoying and stressful event where one single mistake means that you have to repeat the whole goddamn sequence. Now, I'm afraid I have to go a bit negative from now on. First of all, the first chapter, or at least all parts with that dude wearing a hat, of the game is the best one. Okay, I know it doesn't sound like a downside at all, but please let me explain. That part of the game has the best sneaking parts, the most innovative gameplay, and arguably the best monster, or at least one that has the most lore presented around him. Also, the entire chapter is the longest. It took me about 4 hours to beat the game, and that part lasted for about an hour and a half. All of later monsters have about 15 to 20 minutes of screen time, and are used for 1, maybe 2 chase sequences. I'm not kidding, there are literally 2 monsters which only appear for 1 single chase scene and then disappear forever. Now, don't get me wrong, their design and mentioned chases are amazing, but those enemies feel very, very underdeveloped compared to the first guy with a hat and his snake people. It just feels like a lot of wasted potential that could be definitely used in a phenomenal way somehow. There was yet another beast that appears during gameplay. The formidable FPS drops. Fortunately, they didn't appear that much during actual gameplay. By that I mean chases and sneaking. They mostly limited themselves to when I entered a new chapter. Also, if you don't have a friend to play with, that's mostly okay, because the AI companion is mostly okay. But unfortunately, it has some moments in which yeah. Also, having sometimes even 3 almost indistinguishable characters on screen during chases or sneak sequences can be kind of frustrating. There were a few times where I thought that I went to a hiding spot, where in reality the character I thought I was controlling was an NPC, and the actual me was standing proudly out in the open. But maybe that's just my skill issue, I don't know. I'm not going to discuss anything related to the plot here, because just like in previous games, it's really environmental and left for interpretation. However, I am going to say that the ending sequence feels like a beginning of a conclusive final chapter rather than an actual ending. Unlike previous games where the ending felt actually conclusive. And this makes the game feel like it just ends where it should keep going for at least a bit. Now, I know I've made a lot of comparisons to the previous games, because honestly, compared to them, Reanimal is maybe a bit worse than Little Nightmares 2. However, if you set your expectations made from the quality of the previous games aside, Reanimal is a very solid title that's really enjoyable and has that wonderful, amazing, oppressive atmosphere we all love and cherish. So, to answer the question, should you play Reanimal? Oh, absolutely. If you're a fan of horror games, and especially sneaking games, you'll have a blast playing Reanimal. But it's best to wait for a little discount rather than to buy it for its full price. And with that being said, we've arrived to the end of our little review. Thank you so much for sticking to the end. It was Divkofan, signing off.